Welcome to Payne on Politics, a podcast where host Dr. Gregory Payne of Emerson College sits down with fellow experts to discuss the current state of politics, public opinion, and global affairs. In a world growing increasingly complex, communication and critical thinking is key. This only makes the Emerson motto, expression necessary to evolution, more true.
Hello, this is Gregory Payne, the Chair of Communication Studies, the first communication department in the United States, also co-director of the Emerson Blanquerna Center for Global Communication. One of the more exciting aspects of doing Payne on Politics is connecting with part of that Emerson Mafia. And I ran across on LinkedIn the other day someone who I had not touched base with for a while, but someone who actually was a permanent fixture almost at 21 Commonwealth at the Legacy campus. And that is Natalie Blais. So, Natalie, welcome to Payne on Politics.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again.
Now, you've had such a storied career. Of course, I remember talking to you once on the telephone. You were thinking about grad school, and you said, Dr. Payne, I don't think I can do it because we have a monetary issue here that I'm dealing with. And I remember contacting a good friend of mine who was trustee for 50 years, Helen Rose. And Helen said, she sounds like she's going to be a very promising student. And I said, all she needs is a little bit of green. And so I called you and said what?
You asked if I could make it possible if
she made it possible.
If she made it possible.
And you know, Helen, there was an old 60s game show called Let's Make a Deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with her graduate fellowship, you came to Emerson. And I have to say thank you so much. You've had such an impressive career.
Thank you. And it all started. Emerson.
Well, you're kind. I think, as we look across here, you can see the legacy piece. Do you remember Matt Dorsey?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Matt Dorsey just became a representative in California from San Francisco. Yes. Okay. So we'll have to get the two of you connected.
That'd be great.
But in any event, you came, and then you've had all types of stops. Some people that are going to be watching are going to say, "Why did you ever leave them?" But you immediately went, and you, of course, the staple of Vermont is
Ben & Jerry's.
Ben & Jerry's. And what did you do at Ben & Jerry's besides get some ice cream?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I actually wasn't intending to work for Ben & Jerry. I had graduated from here. I got married and had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I showed up at a temp agency, and I said, just tell me what you got. And they sent me Ben & Jerry's way. And so I helped Ben & Jerry on the efforts that they were involved in at the time.
Did you make ice cream?
I did not make ice cream. I got to sample lots of ice cream, as did my friends. I was very popular at the time.
Yes, I can imagine.
But Ben was in the process of starting up TrueMajority.org,
right,
which was the very beginning of online advocacy.
Yes, advocacy campaign.
It was really incredible to be there while that was happening.
So, you've had this interest in politics. What did you see? And of course, they're very political. They have flavors named after people. Yeah. What excited you about that aspect of branding, and how dedicated do you think they are to actually affecting social change?
I'll start with the latter question. They are very dedicated to affecting social change and going about it in ways that you wouldn't expect. Of course, there's the corporate piece of it, and they are ambassadors for the Ben & Jerry's brand now since the company was sold. But Ben in particular was very interested in doing these guerrilla marketing campaigns.
Very impressive.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes, yes.
Always interesting.
Now, you did say, well, you enjoyed that. Of course, your friends enjoyed it. From there, you went to...
So my husband got a job in Massachusetts.
I hear he's a very good football coach.
He's a great football coach. So we moved to Massachusetts, and I didn't have a job when I moved to Massachusetts. I was applying to jobs by looking in the classified section in the paper, and there was a job advertisement that it was a blind ad, and it said something like, do you want to help people? Do you want to make a difference?
Oh, I know what the answer is there since meeting you, yes.
And I sent in my resume, and it ended up being a congressional office in Western Massachusetts. So I was hired by Congressman John Oliver at first to do casework.
Yes. Yeah. Now, you said that John Oliver, even though we teach communication at Emerson, he would rather not be in front of the camera.
He hated being in front of the camera.
So how did you get the message out?
So I ended up taking a videography course, and we started producing videos. And we had other people tell his story. We had other people talk about how federal dollars had started programs that impacted their lives, and to listen to these people's stories about John Olver's efforts and the difference that it made was incredibly powerful.
Well, I think, storytelling is something we've done at Emerson since 1880, but if you could get somebody else who's credible to tell your story. Yeah. So how did you decide who you were going to feature? What were you really looking for to hit that hot button, as Tony Schwartz would say?
That's a great question. At the time we had federal appropriations, and he was on the appropriations committee, so we were able to direct funds to a lot of housing, transportation projects. So we were really looking for those projects that impacted, it could have been a lot of people, it could have been one person, and really showing the breadth of that impact.
Right. The one thing, after Oliver, you then continued to what was the next step? Because you've had such a diverse career, and I think for anybody watching, if you don't think a communications degree can take you anywhere, we used to have an ad, you never know where an Emerson education will take you. Ben and Jerry's, Oliver, and then where?
Then so John Olver was actually redistricted out of office as a result of a decline in population in western Massachusetts. I was lucky enough to be picked up by Congressman Jim McGovern and was able to work for him for several more years.
Yes.
Continuing the work there.
So how would you compare McGovern and your former boss?
So I did communications for both John Olver and Jim McGovern, and in the transition period there, it was like I had schizophrenia because I was writing speeches for both of them, and John Olver's approach, he's very stoic, he's very matter of fact. Jim McGovern is funny and much more off the cuff. So to write remarks or speeches for them was making that transition was very, very difficult, because once you get somebody in your head and you're writing those remarks or speeches, it's very hard to change that.
Well, we might have talked when I was your professor. I used to teach speech writing, and I worked, of course, with Mayor Bradley, who's behind me here, at least the picture. And one thing that I found in working with him after the Robert Kennedy campaign was he said to me one day, can you go with me to speeches and listen to them? And this is after I'd written the speech, and so I would go with him. I remember going to two, and he didn't give anything. There was not one word that I had written to him. And so he was also very quiet. I remember I finally said, Mayor Bradley, I'm not quite sure. I go to these speeches, and I've written this speech, and yet you're not giving it. And he goes, you're right, I'm not. And I said, why? And he said, because you're writing for Robert Kennedy. And I am not Robert Kennedy. I admire Robert Kennedy, but I want you, as you've said, I want you to be me. You got to crawl within me. Yeah. How hard is it for you, or how, well, I would say for anyone, to get inside the brain and the rhetorical style of whoever they're writing for?
It is difficult. I think it can be easy, it can be difficult. It depends on who you're writing for and whether or not they are a reflection of you or somebody very different. I will tell you, to this day, the most difficult person I find it to write for is myself.
Yes.
I could write for John Olver and Jim McGovern without any problem at all. If I have to write a speech for myself, it is incredibly difficult.
Well, see, I think you and I have something similar, because it's much easier for me to write something for you, for Shepard or whatever, when I think, okay, what? And I often say, well, what do I really have to say on this? And then people go, what are you talking about? Okay, you've done that. But it didn't stop there. You got what? You decided after that maybe you hadn't had enough of academia, so you decided to be what?
I signed on as the first chief of staff to Chancellor Subaswamy at UMass Amherst.
That's incredible. First of all, she's a wonderful person.
He's been there for 10 years, and it's really transformed the campus.
Right.
And it was an opportunity to do something new after 10 years in federal government.
Yes.
It was an opportunity to start up an office and to support his vision for the campus, which was really groundbreaking in terms of what they were able to do.
Well, I know many people ask, and I sometimes don't know because I've seen several and try at times to figure out, what does a chief of staff do for, say, a chancellor?
It is a lot of crisis management and crisis communication.
Yes, well,
so
we
I often
know that.
Fell back to
what
my
we learned.
days.
Yes.
But it's just working with people and bringing them together to accomplish the goal that the chancellor laid out. Identifying who the right people were to bring to the table, and then how best to move that idea forward.
Right.
But certainly being on call 24 hours a day too, if there was an emergency, so that they weren't calling weren't having to call Swami.
Right.
You know, he said when I interviewed first, he said, you know, I just have so many things floating around in the air, and I wake up in the middle of the night concerned about which ball I've dropped.
Yes.
I need you to help me to make sure that I haven't dropped the ball.
Well, I
That was
think,
the job.
well, it doesn't surprise me, Natalie, when you were here, I mean, you were such a help, you know, in terms of myself and other faculty over at 21 Commonwealth. So these skills that you sort of go from Ben and Jerry's, then you work for a congressman, then you get into academia. You've said that was one of the most tiring jobs, working in that capacity. But then you've come back somewhat to politics. Where are you now?
So I've just been reelected as state representative for the First Franklin District.
And you're just right across the
Just
common
over
right
there.
here.
You've got a
Good,
great
good.
view of my
Yes.
office.
Your house here. We'll just wave at you, yes. So what is it like now, what you worked for, and all of a sudden now you are a representative?
Yeah. So I represent 18 communities in Franklin County.
You see, that's amazing.
It
Yes.
it
it's
is
so,
a lot.
Yes.
But it's wonderful. It's a beautiful district. I can't imagine representing any other district in the Commonwealth.
Right.
I represent, every House member represents around 42,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't ask for a better job.
Yeah.
It's really,
Right.
it's incredibly rewarding public service where you're serving people
Right.
and helping them when they're in trouble, but also changing laws and policies that have a broader effect on individuals across the entire Commonwealth.
What would be the number one or number two issues among your constituency in Western Massachusetts?
It's a great question. You know, transportation is something that I've always been interested in since I worked for Congressman Oliver. You know, we don't have a strong public transportation system in Western Massachusetts, where we rely on our regional transit authorities. There are 15 regional transit authorities across the Commonwealth, and there are still some areas of the Commonwealth where we don't have access to public transportation on evenings or weekends.
Right.
So as you have individuals who are trying to get to their job or childcare or education, if they don't have access to public transportation, that becomes a real struggle. We're also seeing, you know, our roadways deteriorate, our small bridge program, and culverts as well. So that infrastructure piece is certainly a challenge. We just got broadband in Western Massachusetts.
Well, congratulations,
if you
yes.
can believe it.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. I grew up
that's-
in Southern Illinois, so same task,
yeah,
yes.
it was a real challenge to get broadband as an infrastructure piece for communities and individuals to succeed.
Now, will you feel any of this? Will you see some of the infrastructure bill that President Biden? Do you think that will be trickling out to your way?
I certainly hope so.
Yes.
We're a little ahead of the curve. You know, the rest of, or the rural, a lot of the rural communities across the country are now trying to catch up to what Western Massachusetts did.
Right.
So, you know, we've tried to put Massachusetts out there as a leader when it
Good.
comes to broadband infrastructure in rural communities, but also looking towards that next step. Once you have the broadband, what are you doing with the technology? How are we ensuring that people have the digital literacy skills
Right.
to really harness it and
Yes.
make sure that they're able to work or whatever else it is that they want to do? With
So now you
broadband.
come in from Western Massachusetts. Of course, that's a long drive.
Yes,
You've
it
got
is.
a husband who's a very successful basketball coach at Amherst.
Football.
Football. And he's at Amherst, very, very wonderful school, very
Yes.
difficult to get into. I have a friend from Saudi Arabia whose son is wanting to go to Amherst. So should I put in a good word if he plays football? We can see.
There you go.
My question to you is, you're at the State House. I've got an idea for you. We would love to have you come and teach a state politics or state government course at your alma mater.
Say any way I can be helpful.
Right.
Happy to help.
Right, because we have a lot of students very much interested in Emerson polling with Spencer Kimball. But we also have with Emily, you just met. She works at the State House. She's teaching, I think, is it advocacy and argument or mediation and negotiation, I think. And then Nico, who's a recent graduate, who's over at Harvard getting his master's in education, is teaching an advocacy course. We would love to have you do state politics.
I'd love to talk about state politics.
Yes. Well, now you and I also talked about internships.
Yeah.
You say there is a need in your office. There's a need over there for interns.
Yeah, when you're first elected as a representative, you get one staffer.
Yes.
So when people talk about all the work that my office is doing, it's me and Corinne. And so to the extent that we're able to bring interns on to help us and certainly to give them a rewarding experience where they can build a portfolio that's going to help them further their careers. I'm not interested in just having people do data entry.
Yes.
You know, I want to make sure that we're looking at projects that they are interested in, that they can help us with as well, and hopefully make something happen.
Well, what I would like, I think we'll have many students interested. If we could schedule something where you could come over, we'll have some type of a meeting, maybe at noon, and I think you'll have a variety of people, including some of our ambassadors. Of course, it'll be almost like you seen yourself back when you were at Emerson. Very, very eager. Natalie, it's been great. Of course, I think I was telling Shepard and others, we connected on LinkedIn. I said I haven't touched base with you in such a long time. Once again, if it wasn't for Helen Rose, who to me has really been just such a gift for all of us, we wouldn't have had you. But I think, as that song goes, we've got you back where you belong. So can't wait to say, Professor, welcome back to Emerson.
Thank you very much. It's
Now,
great
your
to see
two
you.
kids, you've got
Two kids.
Are they too young for me to start recruiting? Or?
Maybe. I don't know. It might be good to plant some seeds.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you for Pain on Politics. And for those of you watching, get ready. We're going to have Professor Natalie teaching state government very soon. See you next time. Pain on Politics from Emerson College.